morning, Enid. My name is Larissa Sloan. I am the media assistant here at the communications department for the city of Enid. And today with me is Mike Honigsberg. He is with the Enid Garfield County Emergency Management.
Yes.
And I follow him religiously, and you should too. And today we're going to talk about severe weather. We have some weather happening today, and it's a perfect time to talk about it because we are in storm season. So I'm going to let him take it away.
You're going to let me take it away?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Very good. Yeah, as Larissa said, I'm Mike Honigsberg, and I'm the Emergency Management Director for the city and the county. I've been the county guy for coming up on 30 years and the city guy coming up on 20 years. And I'm also a retired rural firefighter after 18 years. So been around the world here just a little bit, during my tenure. But today, like Larissa said, we're going to be talking about storm preparedness and that kind of thing, and how you can stay safe, and things to do, things not to do, and information in between.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit about what your position is.
Well, my job basically is to prepare for, respond to, mitigate from, and help in the recovery process of any disaster or any major emergency. And, all of them kind of work together, but preparedness is the one area that I've been really stressing for years and years and years to get people to do. A lot of people think that they're prepared for things, and they would be surprised how not prepared they are. And so, that's been one of my priorities in wanting to try to get people prepared so they understand what it really means, so that they can take care of their family if something bad really happens.
And you even have a preparedness guide that you've put together.
Yes, we do. And it's on our website at gcem.org. And when you go to the website, you just click under Docs and, click that. And then it says, I think it's 2020 Preparedness Guide. We're in the process of updating it. And so, but I mean, the information in there is still good. It's just that there's a few other things we want to add to it from things that we've learned over the years. So, it's an ongoing, revision. Let's just put it that way. Kind of like all of our plans, we have to revise them ever so often.
Yeah,
so
for sure. So the main focus today is severe weather.
Right.
Yeah. And so then let's talk about the Garfield County Emergency Management app.
Okay, the app, it's a really cool app. We've had this app for about 10 years, maybe 11, something like that. And it gives a lot of information. National Weather Service advisories and warnings automatically come through. And it's not the type where, for instance, it says tornado warning your area. Well, I've seen a lot of apps that say that, and then people are going, well, where is it? Well, ours comes through with all of the information from the National Weather Service, so that you can actually read and see what they're saying, where things are, and this kind of thing too. So it's really pretty cool, really. So, lots of information, lots of preparedness information. We even have an ask the director icon on there. So if you have questions, you can ask the question and send it to us. There's a damage assessment deal on there. So if you have damage after a weather event, or even from any other type of event, you can send that information to us too. Then of course we relay things to the state, and I just work with state and federal authorities, if the need comes about.
So when is storm season?
Well, actually, it starts January 1st and ends December 31st.
And we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, more or less. It's, to have tornadic weather and that kind of thing, we're kind of in that realm right now. From March, April, May, June is when our highest levels of tornadic activity occur. But we've had tornadoes in every month of the year, too. And so, and last year was the highest number of tornadoes that we have ever had in Oklahoma. Our average is maybe 58 or so, 58 to 60 per year. And last year, between the Tulsa National Weather Service office and the Norman National Weather Service office, we had 152 tornadoes. And I think we have a graphic on here that shows how many we had each particular month. So, I mean, it was kind of crazy.
That sounds like it.
Yeah, it was record-breaking last year. And of course, we've this week, just yesterday, there was a boatload, and I don't know the number, but I think there was 100 and some odd tornado warnings, east of here with this, storm systems that were basically came through here the day before. So, this is starting out to be kind of a volatile year. So anyway, it's really kind of crazy the way all this stuff works.
What is a severe thunderstorm?
Well, severe thunderstorms, they're basically categorized as a storm that produces 1-inch hail and 58-mile-an-hour winds. And they upped that from 3/4 size hail and 55-mile-an-hour winds, about 4, 5, 6 years ago. And so that's how they pretty much categorize what a severe thunderstorm is. When you have to put a parameter on there, and then you just take from that point and then you go on. Now, there are some times that they'll do a severe thunderstorm warning due to the intensity of a storm. I'm not going to get into all that, but on radar, it gives us storm intensities at different levels in the atmosphere, and when a certain criterion is met, if we don't have the winds, if we don't have the hail size, and that other criterion occurs, they can also tag that with a severe thunderstorm warning.
Why is it 1-inch hail?
I guess it just hurts worse than if it hits you.
But there's different sizes of hail, though.
Oh yeah, there's all different types of hail. And I mean, some people will see round hail, they'll see very jagged hail, and those are the ones that can really do people and, damage to roofs and that kind of thing too. But hail size is really important for us. A lot of times people will report to us marble size hail. And I always tell people I've lost my marbles, so they're all gone as far as that goes. But when reporting hail sizes, this is a graphic. I would take a picture of this on your TV and with your phone, so you have this, so that we can better discern what size hail is actually falling. And in spotter classes, when I'm teaching those, because I do that for the National Weather Service too, we always tell everybody, give us the size hail that's the largest one you see out there. Estimate as best you can, because we don't want you running out there grabbing them when it's still hailing. We want to know the largest one, because that tells us what's going on up in the storm a lot better. If you get a bunch of, say, pea and dime size hail, then all of a sudden you're seeing quarter size hail or even larger. The storm's intensifying, and there's other things going on up there that we need to know about. So that's why we have people, report that to us that way. And then we're tied directly to the National Weather Service anyway through a chat program. And so when our spotters and stuff out in the field give us pertinent information, we just type that in and it pings the desk of one of the warning forecasters down there. And sometimes a lot of the severe thunderstorm warnings that we get up here is because of our network.
It sounds like there's a lot of things that happen on the back end that nobody knows about.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on the back side of this stuff. And, here in fact, a couple evenings ago when we had the severe weather in here, when the storm that formed in northern Kingfisher County formed and went severe within 15 minutes. And I didn't have the availability of a lot of my spotters at that time. Now, we did have some Enid police officers that were on duty, that are part of our network. We activated them to get out there and get to a vantage point to keep an eye on the storm, because the atmosphere was so unstable that day. It wouldn't have taken a lot for the storm to go tornadic, and it tried several different times, but it just wasn't quite there yet. So we had them activated. I activated our northern spotters in the northern half of the county. They were available, so they were able to go out, keep a good eye, vantage point on everything too. And then we just kind of did our thing. So it's kind of unique how all that stuff comes together.
So we had mentioned the app, and we had mentioned a couple of other things, but they can tune into Channel 4.
Okay.
On the weather radio.
Yeah, on a weather radio. People who get the NOAA weather radios, Channel 4 gets you to the closest radio tower that the National Weather Service has up here in our area for warnings over that particular radio. They're not hard to program. If you just follow the directions on, that come with the radios, I can program those. It's that easy. So, and I'm not that technologically advanced when it comes to a lot of this, but yeah, Channel 4 on your weather radios is perfect. And something else on the app, in looking at that too, there's also an icon on there on where am I? And that works anywhere in the United States. So if you're lost, All you got to do is punch that, and it'll show you where you are. I thought that's a pretty good feature too.
That is really cool.
Because sometimes we get some of our new spotters, if they're not real familiar with the area, if they're new on one of the fire departments or a new police officer, they may not know where they are. I mean, especially at night, they can get confused and not realize where they are, and that will help them, locate where they are.
Let's talk about storm sirens.
Okay. We have, and don't quote me exactly, I think we have around 43 or 44 sirens.
In Enid?
Here in Enid.
Oh, wow.
We have several old sirens left. We're replacing those with the new type sirens. And I think we have a slide where it shows one of the 4 speaker sirens on there. These are electronic sirens. Some of them are solar, some of them are tied to power, but they're all battery backup. So if we lose power, they should still work. These are self-testing. They test every day. And so I can go into the system, and so can technical services, and see if there's any problems. If there is, then they set up a time where they can go fix the problem. If the batteries are low, if they're not charging properly, if there's a communication problem with the siren, we know about it. So now we don't have to really test them all the time to know, because they self-test. Now we're still kind of in the process of making a decision on if we're going to test them once a week or if I'm going to voice test them. You don't want to hear my voice anyway, but but we don't know for sure how we're going to go about doing that here in the future once we get them all changed up. Some of the older sirens that are sitting out there, some may work, some may not, but finding parts for those now is really, really difficult. We had a guy that used to work at technical services that could make those parts, but he's retired.
Oh, wow.
And so, that ability kind of went away. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things, kind of a change of the times. And just so people know, I can fire these sirens from either at home through a computer program. I can fire them from our center through a console that looks like a missile launch console. You turn the key and everything lights up. It's really kind of cool looking. And the police department can also do that because they have the same type of console there. So because if I'm out and about and something bad happens and we need to set those things off, or if we need to put out information to the public, talking over the system, then we can do so. And they can do so. So, it's just a massive team effort to make things happen, to do whatever we have to do to protect our public.
So there's different levels of storms, correct?
Yes.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay. Well, there's a graphic for that too, and in the graphic there's all different colors of things. Today we're in a general thunderstorm risk. It's below marginal, it's light green color. And this graphic, it started with marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high risk. And that doesn't mean that you can't have tornadoes in the marginal risk, because you can. But they're just different level. For instance, marginal is just, we're going to have some severe storms. It may be 1, it may be 2 or 3, nothing gigantic in there, not just an all-out major horrible scenario. That gets more to the high risk as far as that goes. Slight is basically they're organized storms. The enhanced is greater coverage. The moderate, widespread severe weather, and then of course you get to the high risk where it's going to be a rough day. Now, last year we had tornadic activity in late April and early May. And during some of our briefings that we had with the National Weather Service, when they told you it doesn't make any difference where the risk category is, if a storm forms and it goes severe, it will be tornadic. We were all a little jumpy there for a while, because never in my 30 plus years doing this have they ever said that. And so, it was a little discerning to us, but at the same time, it kept us on a higher level of alert, to keep track of stuff. And then we have tornadic storms in the morning, which doesn't happen all the time. The atmosphere was extremely unstable. This has already happened this year a few times. We've had storms come through in the middle of the night, and the atmosphere was very unstable. We had a low-level jet that, was really making things happen too. And so, again, a lot of variables go into all of this stuff. And these graphics help everybody understand what's really going on. Now, when I do live broadcasts on Facebook, or even when I post graphics and stuff in the morning, when I put information out to the public to begin with, when you look at these graphics, you know, I always tell people in there, you know, look at these very carefully, read them carefully, because there's a lot of good information in here. And just, you know, don't get fixated, and this is one thing I do in spotter training, don't get fixated on where the different colors come together, because if you were able to blow that thing up, you'd see those lines are jagged, okay? They're gonna move during the day. And so, well, in fact, back in 2012, I think it was, when Woodward had their tornado, their emergency manager over there called me one day, because we were in a high risk here. He called me and says, I sure would hate to be in your shoes later today. I said, I know, it's going to be tough. Well, during the day, that risk moved west. And so it was right over him, you know, by 7 o'clock that night. So I called him up and said, I sure would hate to be in your shoes. You know, but this is what we do to each other. You know, we kind of torment each other a little bit. But, you know, but we're there for them. They're there for us in the event we ever take a hit. So, you know, that's important. But getting back to the graphic, a tornadic storm can happen in any of these colors. Okay, if conditions are just right. And so, you know, when you look at the graphic, it gives you that, it gives you the risk, it gives you the tornado potential. Keep in mind, tornado potential. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but, you know, like on the graphic that we have for this, there's a medium risk, you know, for that. Your hail size, it'll give you up to a certain size, and then your maximum wind speeds, that's what they're estimating due to the conditions, you know, and that's on there too. And so when you look at these things, and then you go to other graphics that show tornado potential and all these kind of things, you know, just take the time to read them carefully. People panic when weather is going on. And I got to be careful here, because I'm not going to name names of stations or whatever, but the TV stations get a little bit, they present their situation in a very elaborate way. Let's just put it that way. And it gets people really wound up. And then when they get wound up, who do they call? They call us. I mean, are we going to die? Is this going to happen, or that going to happen? And I really try to calm people down. You know, things for us in the center are crazy sometimes, and I try to remain as calm as I can, because if I lose it, everybody's going to lose it. And nothing has ever happened to where we've actually lost it in the weather center. But we do have TVs in there. We keep them on to all the stations, specifically for the you know, the photos and the video and all that kind of thing. Sound is forbidden. We've kicked people out of the room for turning up the sound. We don't need the drama. We got enough drama in there as it is, you know, when we're doing stuff.
And you have to focus.
Yes, we do. We have to focus immensely. And now that I've gone to doing some of this stuff on live for Facebook, we got to really be careful. And, you know, I've told the guys, I said, do the best you can and watch your language when we are live, because, you know, it gets a little colorful in there sometimes.
I do think as myself, as a viewer, because I follow you, anytime we have like potential weather happening, I check your Facebook page all the time. Like, I'm a very faithful follower. I don't even check like the news channels like anymore, just because you give accurate information and you tell people what's happening. And when we do have bad weather, you're live for a very long time. And I just have to say, like, that helps a lot as for the feedback that is so precious to you. Like, that helps a lot. Because I like weather. I like it when it rains, but I don't like tornado weather.
Well, I don't think anybody likes tornado weather. We don't like tornado weather, but we train for this kind of thing. We have our own spotter network. I would put these guys and gals out there up against anybody in the nation, because number one, they've learned to tell us what they're seeing, not what they think they may be seeing. They tell us what they're seeing. They tell us what's happening now. And that's what's the most important thing out there. And they all do a great job when they're out there doing their thing. And they stay safe. When we first started doing this a long time ago, I tried to put people in specific places, and then that's where they stayed until we moved them. Well, we found out the first year that wasn't the right thing to do. They got to be able to have the latitude to move to stay safe. And since radar updates every 5 minutes, that was hard to do, especially on fast-moving storms. And so when we had our critiques after all the storms, the guys mentioned that, and I said, okay, go out there, let us know where you are, then let us know where you move. And it's worked out great ever since. We don't chase storms, we just go out there and we observe. Then they report, we report it down to Norman, and then, if we have to put out a warning here, sometimes we do that. There's times that the warning has come out here before it did from the National Weather Service, but that's, it's not a game. I mean, it's not a race with them, it's just a team effort. Sometimes we'll put the warning out before we even give them the information, which is something that we're trying to make sure we give them the information before we do that. So, and then they formalize the warning the way they do, and it works out really well.
Can you tell us about the difference between watches and warnings?
Okay, whether it's a severe thunderstorm or a tornado watch, it just means conditions are there for a tornado to occur or for a severe thunderstorm to happen. A warning just means it's happening now. If there's a tornado warning, the possibility of having a tornado is very real, and it's happening now. You just need to be watching closely and carefully and listening to where these things are occurring. If I'm live on Facebook at that time, you'll also hear the radio traffic in the background, because I get myself and set myself close to the radio so people can hear that. And last year, a lot of people told us they loved that. That just added to, they could understand, and they knew where everybody was because they were telling everybody where they were. So it worked out really well. But it's very important that people need to understand that watches and warnings are not related. Okay, they're two different categories. So we're not under any watches or warnings today, but we may not even be under a watch if a tornado is occurring. But we'll be under a warning. But that gets into some complicated stuff, so I won't go too deep into that. But just understand, watches means conditions are favorable, and warnings means it's happening now. So and so if we're under the warning, pay attention.
Yeah. And so if they wanted to know the information faster than reading all of that information, how could they do that?
Well, and I think we have a graphic on the screen here for that too, or we will have one shortly. Whenever this information comes out, they'll put in, location numbers and this kind of thing, and they'll have a boatload of information, precautionary actions, what's going on, what the threats are, all that. But down at the very bottom of, that whole script are the key things. Like, for instance, if it's a tornado warning, it'll say tornado, and then it'll be like it's either observed or happening now or whatever. And the tornado damage threat, they'll give you the threat level, and then if there's hail involved, they'll give you the size. I think on the graphic it says 1.75, so that would be golf ball size hail. So, see, I didn't say marble size.
No, not marble. No.
So, but that's how you can do it if you're going to the Storm Prediction Center site. That's what they'll put out there when they do that. Now, they also put out a mesoscale discussion. Okay, so understand and make sure that when you read these things, it's a discussion. It's not a warning. And these are things that they're thinking will happen in a specific area during a current timeline or a timeline, of the near future.
So, from what I understand, there is no public shelters. Can you tell us why?
Well, I can't give you the political reasons why there's not, but I'll tell you why I'm glad there isn't. Even Midwest City terminated their situation here about 10, 15 years ago. Public shelters, I'm totally against, because by the time people make a decision that they want to go to a storm shelter, a public shelter, it's too late. And I use the analogy when I do some public speaking to different groups, is I'll say, here in Oklahoma, this is what we do. We get under a tornado warning. What do? You go outside and look. Well, you go outside and you look, you see something way out there and think, okay, that's cool. So you go do something else. You're maybe putting stuff in the car or whatever, because you're going to go to the public shelter. Well, then you come back out and you look again and you say, ooh, it's closer. And by the time the final decision is made to, oh my gosh, we got to get in the car and get out of here, now you've wasted enough time where you back out, you're on your way, so's everybody else. So it bottlenecks, and now you're in a worse predicament than you would have been if you had stayed home. you have a 50-50 chance of surviving a tornado if you stay at home, whether you have a shelter or not. But it's the same way during the day. And my wife and me actually were talking about this the other day. There's no guarantee that when I go to work, I'm going to come home. 50-50 chance. You just don't know. Nobody knows. And so that's kind of the same analogy that I give to everybody. And even down in Moore, a lot of people survived, even though their homes were wiped out. They survived the hit because they went to the centermost, lowest part of their home, covered up, and just rode it out. Now, granted, some people died, but a lot of them lived. And so, again, 50-50. You just got to make the best decision you can. And it's always best if you have friends and you know they have a storm cellar, and you can call them that morning, for instance, say, hey, there might be tornadic weather later on today. Can we come over to your house, before anything really gets here? Work as a team that way and have these arrangements made before, the storms fire up and get here. And then hopefully everything will be okay.
But if they have a private storm shelter, they can always go on to your website, gcem.org, and they can always register that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of them in there. Now, we don't put that information out to everybody because these are private, but they're there for our search and rescue teams in the event. And that's something else. If we take a hit and your neighborhood gets wiped out, we're not going to be there in 10 seconds. It doesn't work that way. There's rubber tires on everything that we drive. Fire trucks, police cars, my vehicle. We got to be careful driving into these areas because there'll be debris everywhere. There'll be nails sticking up. So, it's always best that you let your neighbors know where it is. And there's a lot of things you can put down in there. If you're trapped inside, and I was asked this, and this is so cool. This little old lady, now I shouldn't say old because I'm getting up there, but she came and she says, well, how am I going to get out if I'm trapped down there? And I said, well, you can get a floor jack, like you would get for your vehicle, and get a T-post and keep it down in there. So if you had to, you can put that jack down there on the floor with that T-post and pump that thing up and maybe push that door open enough to yell for help, that kind of thing. And so she says, wow, but I don't think I could lift the floor jack. I say, call a grandson to come over and set that up for you. It's not hard. You just got to kind of think outside the box on how you're going to yell for help or try to get help, if you're in that particular scenario.
Yeah, because cell phones would be down.
Well, they might be. That's correct. And so, all the modes of communication that we have may work, it may not. It just depends.
Speaking of search and rescue, who all is on your recovery?
Oh boy. Well, our storm spotters are, Enid Police, Garfield County Sheriff's deputies, and of course all the rural fire departments. We had an exercise in January where we all got together and we got to talking about what are we going to do in the first few hours. And it's very important that everybody understand, we're going to have a lot more help than what we have here in the county. What I've already got going is so that everybody understands how this works. We have all of our local people and our county people that would come in to help. Then our surrounding county folks would be sending, the county commissioners would be sending their graders and front end loaders or whatever, into the area along with their countywide task forces, the fire task forces. They would be in here to help. We don't want every one of them in here because we're going to have multiple days where we're going to be involved in search and rescue operations. So, plus we'll have state search and rescue people coming, state public works type folks coming up here. We're going to have a lot of help get here, but it takes time to get here. So, I think it's just real important people know we'll have help there eventually, but bear with us. And, if you're not hurt in this kind of thing, just make sure people in your neighborhoods are okay. Go around and check them. Be careful. Don't walk out there barefooted or wearing sandals. Put some hardcore shoes on because you may end up stepping on a nail.
And if you're not part of the destruction, like of the houses, then just stay home.
Yeah, that's really important. You know, we call those folks looky-loos, and they get in the way more than anything else. We don't want people, it's just like out on a fire. If we have a big fire near town, here comes all the people. They want to see the big old fire, see all the trucks out there doing their thing. But what they don't understand is we don't need them out there around our equipment. Our guys are coming back in to refill with water, and they're moving at a pretty good clip. And if you're in the way, they'll move your car. You know, that's why we don't want them out there, and we'll ask law enforcement to, you know, shut people down at the intersections so that we don't have that interference and stuff going on out there. I won't even let TV media out there. I've really upset some of those people in the past years because they get in the way. And, you know, I don't want our emergency services people, fire, police, or whoever, to be put in jeopardy by people who just want to get a picture.
Nosy.
Yeah, very nosy. And that's just my mindset. And I hope whenever I do retire here that they get somebody in here with the same mindset, because, you know, I'm not doing this job for ratings. I do it for public safety.
Exactly.
And that's my whole thing, is public safety.
So now I do have a question. Why are they called storm spotters and not storm chasers? Because storm chasers is a really like what a lot of people call them.
Yeah, well, your storm chasers are your TV people. And of course, there's a lot of independent people out there too that go out there and storm chase. They say they're doing it for public safety. They're doing it for the videos and all this other. They may report to a National Weather Service office somewhere or whatever, and that's fine. Our people don't chase storms. They spot storms. They have strategic places that they go to where they have a good vantage point, where they can see what's going on and then report that back into us. And this gets more into our spotter classes and stuff that I teach and all when we get into radar stuff. Radar can only tell us what's going on up in the sky. Our spotters give us ground truth. They tell us what's going on from the cloud base to the ground. And without that, I mean, I wouldn't even do what I do if I didn't have spotters in the field. There's been times that radar data was just horrible. You know, it was doing what they call range folding, and I won't go into a lot of detail on that, but when there's purple data on the radar picture and it's just kind of all over the place, radar's confused on, you know, because the beams go out in a certain sequence, they're supposed to come back in the same sequence. When they don't, the program, I'm confused, and turns the data purple. And so when our spotters, if I'm not seeing stuff on radar, but my spotters are saying, hey, we have a very distinct lowering, it's getting lower to the ground, it's really wrapping up, I'm more apt to believe them than I am what I'm seeing on the radar. So again, it's a major team effort on how we do all this stuff. It isn't just me, it's all of us out there, you know, doing our specific parts to protect the public. Kind of crazy.
That is crazy, for sure. I never would have thought of it like that. Can we talk about like the destruction that tornadoes bring?
Total destruction.
Yeah.
It's really bad. If you've never seen true tornado destruction, then it's hard to fathom. You know, people see it on TV and in pictures all the time. After Moore got hit back in '99, I went down there and visited with Galen, who was their emergency manager, and he took me out there. I mean, there weren't any birds. There was no birds chirping through that area or anything. And it was very, I don't even know if I've got a word for it. It just almost overwhelming of how much devastation that there was. And it was just horrible. And I thought, man, if that happened here, it'd be the same way. So, you know, people need to understand that that's why we don't want you out there. We don't want you to get hurt. And, you know, if you're in an area that wasn't affected, stay at home, stay out of the way of emergency services and all, because it's not a game. This is not a game to us. It's life and death. And we're trying to get emergency services people there. We're trying to get public works out there or DOT to clear the roads and this kind of thing. But even then, we may run over nails, you know. And so the people who fix tires, they're going to make a mint just off of us. And, you know, and this is why we don't want the looky-loos out there, because they're going to run over nails too, end up with a flat tire. And now it's kind of like the public shelter thing. There's going to be a bottleneck of cars that have flat tires, and they didn't need to be out there in the first place. So, you know, and it prevents you from getting I don't know if I should say, I'll just say chewed out by the law enforcement guys, the cops, to tell you don't need to be there and you shouldn't have been out here in the first place. Just don't come out there until we can get the roads clear, we get search and rescue operations taken care of, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
How do you handle people that maybe have loved ones that are in that area?
Well, in our exercise, we took out a couple of schools, a hospital, and that kind of thing too. And we didn't go into detail on exactly how we're going to do that, but that would be a question where public school officials need to kind of give you what their procedure is. And we haven't yet got with them to just really sit down and discuss how we would mesh in with them to make all that happen. Because the exercise we did was a daytime exercise, so there would be kids at school and that kind of thing too. So we haven't gone into detail, and I'm not going to sit here and say this or say that when that may not be what we need to do. We're all very careful about that because the school has protocols, we have protocols, police have protocols, fire has protocols, and so we're just trying to work out all those details where it all works together and we work as a team to make all that happen. Because yes, parents are going to be upset, but parents may have lost their homes too. We don't even know if the parents are there. We don't know if the kids are okay for sure yet. And so there's so many different things, to consider in this. And this is my world. What if? And so, and it's the same way with fire and police and everybody else. We just want to do and make sure that we do the right things to help people and get through the situation. So, and then build a better structure of response and that kind of thing too.
Do you ever get ridiculous phone calls?
All the time. It's crazy, totally crazy. Especially when I do the Facebook Live things. The graphics tell the story. That's why I always say read the graphics carefully. And then people will call and they'll be upset about this or upset. Well, what about this? What about this? How long will the tornado be here? I don't know. Are we going to get baseball size hail? I don't know. We'll let you know when the hailstorm's over. That kind. Well, it's the same way with snow. Everybody wants to know how much snow we're going to get. Well, call me tomorrow and I'll tell you when the storm's gone and we'll measure the snow. We don't know. That's the thing. And so, different storm intensities, depending at the level of those instabilities or at those levels of stuff going on, determines what we get. Now, when it comes to 911, oh my gosh, I'll tell you, if you have never been in that center when everything is going crazy, you'll understand if you have been what I'm fixing to say. Don't call 911 unless you were hurt, somebody else is hurt. Don't call 911 if there's a trash can rolling down the street in high winds, or if there's a tree branch that fell down in the street. Okay? We don't want you to do that. The dispatchers in there are so overwhelmed with all these calls, it's not even funny. So I really would like people to just, unless there is a physical emergency, like a heart attack or somebody's been involved in a wreck or something like that, don't call 911. Or I should say call 911 if that's going on. But don't call 911 if there's just stuff blowing around out there, or even if a tree limb lands on your house. If you're not hurt, don't call 911. Help will come for those other things, after the storm. They get so overwhelmed down there, and then when they're overwhelmed, it overwhelms sheriff's dispatch, life dispatch, our people too. It's just crazy how that works. So just do the best you can. And on the damage, I think, the city has a see-click fix.
Yes.
I've used that a few times. I hit something in the road and it bangs real bad. I go, that just makes me mad. So I'll get out and take a picture and send it in, and next day it's usually fixed. I like that.
Yeah, so if you see a limb in the road, then you can always do see-click fix. You can do that on the website, or there's an app that you can download. See-click fix has about 55 different topics that you can cover.
Wow.
And everything like that. And so, but also if you have any questions or anything like that, you can always call me, My number is 580-616-7258. I'd be more than happy to help you with any of the information that we have provided today. I would be more than willing to investigate and find that information if I don't know it myself. And so,
Very good.
See, ClickFix is a huge help. It not only helps us to know what's you're seeing out there, but it helps us to know what needs to be fixed. And it's not just potholes and loose dogs and trees in the road. I promise. There's so much that you can report for
And
sure.
trash cans going down the street.
And trash cans. Runaway, wild, feral trash cans down the road.
Yeah, make sure they're not rabid, because they do this number too sometimes.
Yep.
Had to put a little humor in there.
If you want to stay updated on what the weather is doing, I highly recommend that you plug into Garfield County Emergency Management. They have a Facebook page that I personally plug into. I usually check it every day. I especially check it when there's weather happening. It just lets you know, and it's not all hyped up, and it's just like really calm, and he does a great job. I'm sure that if you have any serious questions, you can give him a call at 580-249-5969, and you can also go to the website and you can see that same information that he would post on his Facebook page. You should probably download the app. That's probably going to be the biggest place that you're going to be able to do a lot more, like register a shelter or
we also post our my daily posts and stuff. I post on that, and they can
Yes.
find that under GCEM blog.
yeah.
So it's there every day too.
Yeah. Is there any other information that our viewers need to know?
Well, I think if any groups out there or anybody wants us to come and do a talk for their group or whatever, we do a lot of public speaking and stuff. We're more than happy to come and do that. I only charge 2 bottles of water. And so it's virtually free. So, and we'll travel around a little bit to do that too, because I do that with spotter training, for other counties too. But we're more than happy to come by and visit with you all and either put on a class or put on a talk. And if you have specific things you want us to talk about, we can make that happen too. That's not a problem.
Mike, thanks so much for coming and sharing all this wonderful information.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you're welcome. Have a good day.